In fantasy, clothing is never just aesthetic. It reveals culture, hierarchy, climate belief systems. For my first novel, I wanted to dive deeper into the culture of Tal'Dreian. I drew a concept for the students and the priests of the academy that is seated in a totally icy environment. The concept actually felt aesthetic to me, but would anyone in this world actually survive in it? Let's dive into it. When I do a concept for a character, it's easy to lean into aesthetics. Flowing sleeves, dramatic silhouettes, symbolic colors, but my fantasy kingdom Tal'Dreian is not a mild climate or an elven palace, it's harsh, icy, wind-cut stone and endless frost. Plus, the design I made wasn't just for any student, it was a design for my main protagonist, Elduin, of my first fantasy novel that is currently in process. Since Elduin is a high priest, a mentor, and a daughter from one of the highest council members in the academy, I wanted the designs to feel airy and pure, similar to the temple garments worn by monks and reflecting on her pure personality. But at the same time, she couldn't freeze to death. And suddenly, I had to ask myself what fabrics would exist there, what symbols and details should be added in order to understand ranks and history. Would it make sense in a harsh climate? How does magic come in handy? The concept wasn't just about appearance. It was about the texture of the fabric, the weight of the cloak, the way materials realistically work together, the physical sensation of wearing the garment woven together with personality and history. I wanted to know whether the design made sense by wearing it myself, and interestingly, while the first concept art provided direction, the actual design only truly emerged through experimenting with fabrics and intensive research. Sewing forced me to confront every decision. Thin fabric suddenly felt wrong, decorative elements became impractical. And I am not a professional tailor. At first, my knowledge of fabrics was limited, but I knew exactly what I wanted to feel: weight, warmth, and protection. Something that matched Tal'Dreian's harsh climate. I had to think like someone who actually lives there. The robe is crafted from high quality, soft suit, chosen not just for luxurious appearance, but its natural warmth. It was designed to be both functional and symbolic, representing purity, transformation, and devotion to the magical teachings of the Talithara. The process of selecting materials and sewing the robe with these reflections felt like sitting in that world as a tailor, crafting a garment for the main protagonist, which I bet I should not mess up, especially not for a high rank like Elduin. I guess to understand my thoughts and process, I should give you a little sneak peek of my world building so far. So let's get into some lore and symbolism while you watch me work. The Academy of Ithkef teaches the path of Ithariel, which means you simply learn how to control your Talithara, the magic that has awakened, for example, through an event that sparked deep feelings and emotions. Almost everyone born with magical abilities eventually finds their way to Ithkef, but the city is far more than its renowned academy. Built around a colossal magic crystal, one of the legendary sources left behind by the ancient dragon gods who forged Anantara, Ithkef pulses with arcane energy. Magic isn't simply studied there, it is woven into the very fabric of daily life, into its streets, its architecture, its inventions. In Ithkef, magic is not a discipline, it is infrastructure and part of their religion towards the moon goddess Lunaris. So I thought magic must be woven into the clothes of the people in order to survive under such environmental conditions. But at this point, I thought that this detail should become a hint to higher ranks of the city, because not everyone would be able to afford magical influenced clothing, especially not in such a harsh environment where everyday life feels like surviving a blizzard, at least for the lower ranks of the community. fine silver embroideries trace along the seams, forming arcane patterns reminiscent of ancient magical scripts. These are not purely decorative. They act as subtle magic conductor, channeling warmth and energy through the garment. Crystal shards I sewed into Eldrin's garment are fragments of the Great Dragon Crystal, which strengthen magical heat circulation through runes and stabilize the energetic structure of the robe, making it feel like a living conduit of ancient magic. Additionally, they enhance the wearer's Talithara, their personal magical power. So unlike the robes of regular students, Eldrin's garment stands out through refined materials, elevated elegance, and intricate magical embellishments. After weaving it all together, it was time to wear it, feel it, and bring it to life. At this point, I already have learned a lot about my culture, how magic works within clothing, and how history is woven into every little detail I was adding to the design. A lot of information came together in the process, and as pieces were brought together, a lot of cultural details that were just chaotic ideas in my sketchbook suddenly made a lot more sense to me. But I couldn't stop there. I had the costume, I had a studio, and I had to simply bring the concept and Eldrin alive. Seeing her, the costume, and my concept in one simple scene that rounded it all up for me. And you probably think like, how does photo shooting help me with world building? Well, that is a question for another video which is already in the drafts, but to give you a short conclusion, photo shootings can give you a lot of inspiration about personality of a character, just like character concepts, just, well, with a more realistic touch. Mary, who helped me bring my character alive in this photo shooting, rounded it all up for me, not only by wearing the costume, but her personality, in my opinion, reflected Eldrin's pretty much, helping me to get more inspiration on the personality, the background, and the way she just feels as a character in my world. If you want to know more about how a photo shooting helps in world building, then better subscribe, hit the bell, and not miss any more videos that is coming in the future. Anyway, what surprised me most wasn't the design, it was how much deeper my writing became afterward. By understanding the materials and the history behind every detail, not only my world building got its level up, but also the details in writing a scene and explaining a culture in a way that actually feels real. Let me give you an example from a draft sentence in my current writing process. Sewing this custom forced me to confront the gaps in my world. On paper, everything had made sense, but the fabric has weight, the fur has warmth, layer restrict movement, and suddenly I had to think about things I had ignored before. Like how people in Teldrain actually endure the environment, how rank is visible from a distance, and how faith is not only spoken, but also worn. So after this project, I didn't just see the culture more clearly, I actually felt it. When I had to choose real fabrics, real layers, real closures, I could no longer hide behind aesthetics. Every decision brought me closer to details on history and character development. And that's when Teldrain and its people became a place with climate structure, belief systems that affect daily life. And since then, I've started asking myself different questions while drafting. Not, does this look beautiful? But, could someone actually survive here? So, even though this project cost me some months, it was definitely worth it and gave me an experience beyond the pages. Plus, I do have an original piece to swoon for. But creative projects like these do not only help me with world building, they also help me push my creative spark, get new perspectives, inspiration, and prevent me from a frustrating art and writer's block. If you like this video and want to follow my journey as an author and artist that builds his fantasy world Anantara from scratch and bring it to life, then like, subscribe, and hit the bell, and let's see us in Anantara, little wisps. Goodbye!